What's going on, everyone? Dave Knittel here. Today is Tuesday, June 19th, and we are recapping World Cup Day 6 action. So Christian is at work with his normal job. Matt is off at school doing things. So it's just going to be me with you today recapping the action. So if you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to say hello, interact with me as I go, so I'm not just talking to myself. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you very much for listening, but we also record this thing live on YouTube about 15, 20 minutes after the last match ends of every World Cup day. So come hang out with us. Usually it's going to be other people here as well, but today it's just going to be me. Before we get to today's action, I want to highlight the Neymar injury. So for those who aren't following, detailed news came out of the Brazil camp today that Neymar limped out of training with an injury. It was on the same side. I believe it's his right leg. It was on the same side as his foot injury that kept him out for a long time with PSG, but it apparently was his ankle. It seemed to be just a knock. I mean, he's a pretty skinny dude, and he took a lot of knocks in their first match against Switzerland. So I think I don't think it's a huge deal. Now, I think he does need to pass the ball more, and so that he doesn't take those knocks in matches moving forward. And, at this point in his career, I don't think he's going to change because that's just the way he plays. He plays to draw players in and take the foul. That's kind of the flair player that he is, but that's something to keep an eye on because you don't have a ton of time to rest during the World Cup. And so, that might inhibit him moving forward. I think Brazil is in a good position to deal with a Neymar injury, unlike last World Cup when they kind of simply fell apart. They have a lot more talented players moving forward and are more stable on defensive side as well. So if this does end up becoming a thing, I don't think it's an absolutely enormous deal for them. But he's one of the top 5 players in the world, and obviously it's an issue when he is out. Getting to today's matches. So first match of the day was Colombia versus Japan. Japan prevailed 2-1 for those who didn't watch it. The biggest talking point obviously was the red card in the 3rd minute, I believe, is when all the action happened. So it started with a somewhat innocuous long ball played over the top, and Davinson Sanchez, the center back for Colombia, who I had been hyping up as someone to, just look out for as being a star at this World Cup. I mean, he literally just turned 22, and this is his World Cup debut. He made a terrible play on the ball. So first off, he completely overran it and got himself into a bad position so that the Japanese striker was then in behind him. The Japanese striker wasn't able to collect the ball too quickly, but Davinson Sanchez was kind of clumsily kicking it around. He couldn't find the ball either, end up kicking it right into the Japanese player's path. And so that guy went in on a breakaway. Goalkeeper made a save, but then the rebound ricocheted back out and somebody hit it from Japan, and what was his name? I have it written down. Carlos Sanchez stuck out his arm to prevent the goal from going in. Now, this was in the 3rd minute. I understand that you want to do everything possible to prevent a goal from going into the net, but he needs to recognize that situation. I know it's easy for me to judge now after the fact, and in the heat of the moment, it was just a natural reaction for him, but at that level, you need to have the, again, wherewithal and the knowledge of the game situation that if we go down a goal here, we have 87 minutes to get that back. If I handball it and we go down a player, give up a penalty, and likely concede a goal, yes, it's possible that they don't score on the penalty, but we still have 87 minutes to go back. It's a much harder battle to fight down a man 87 minutes, possibly down a goal or possibly even drawing, than it is to just be down a goal playing even strength, because even being up a man, Japan did not look good for most of that game. And so if Colombia was full strength for the majority of that game, I favored them to do well even without James playing. I thought even down a man, again, Colombia did really well. Just checking my notes here. Still looked pretty dangerous on the break. I thought it was interesting Cuadrado came off in the 30th minute and they put on a holding midfielder. That shifted Juan Quintero out wide and into Cuadrado's spot. I thought that was an interesting decision. I mean, it ultimately proved to be pretty effective because I thought Colombia played pretty well throughout the first half. The 30th minute is when the goal for Colombia came about. Now, when the ball went up into the air on this play, you could see Radamel Falcao wanted no parts of winning that ball. He was looking at the Japanese player the entire time, looking to draw the contact, and the Japanese player didn't look around at all. He was so focused on the ball. And so the referee called a foul on the Japanese player when I think it should have been the other way around. I think Falcao was the one who actually committed the foul, and the free kick should have gone the other way. Now, it didn't. Falcao was, flopping throughout the match trying to draw fouls. I mean, that's what you got to do when you're down a man. I get that. I respect that to an extent. But on this one, I think the referee got it wrong. Now, Juan Quintero, the guy who hit the free kick under the wall, incredibly clever. There's no real controversy there. I think most of the controversy was surrounding whether that was a foul or not. Clearly, the ball went in, and that was just a fantastic shot. I do want to shout out the Total Soccer Show, who does a fantastic daily podcast. If you're not listening to them, you should definitely go check them out. But they have been previewing and doing detailed reviews of all of the teams in the World Cup. And they highlighted specifically that Colombia presses, but they press in a very interesting way in that they kind of hold back and then they wait for a certain pressing cue and then they all sort of press and spring it on you. And I thought that they were still doing that throughout the match, even being down a man. I thought that that was very, very effective. I thought Japan was predictable up until Keisuke Honda came on for Shinji Kagawa in the second half. I don't know if it was Colombia tiring at that point or if it was just Honda doing things differently. I can't say for certain, but I thought before Honda came on, I thought that they were a bit slow in their passes. I thought when they tried to play creative balls, I didn't think that they were hitting them particularly effectively and particularly quick enough. I thought that they were just kind of telegraphing their passes. And so once Honda came on, they had a little bit more creative movement, a little bit more initiative, and a little bit they were just better at being more creative in the offensive third. Sanchez again, or not Sanchez, yes, Davinson Sanchez. He didn't have a great game. I already highlighted the play early on. There was a moment in the second half when he let a defender sort of just turn him fairly easily and get off a pretty good shot in the 54th minute. So that was not good from him. And again, I just expected more out of him having such a good season for Tottenham in the Premier League. I know he's still a young player, but I just expected more of him. No man on the post. Okay, so for Japan's second goal, this is something that always drives me crazy. I always expect teams to have men on the post on a corner kick. I mean, when it's a set play and it's just so easy to concede goals when men aren't on the post. I get that some people value having more men in the box and just saying, hey, let's go out and win it. But the reality of the situation is you can't win every single ball on a corner kick. And so why not take some of that risk out of play and have somebody on either post in case that a ball gets shot in or a head, you lose a header, and then you just have a man there to clear it off the post. So for me, I will never understand not putting men on both posts, and ultimately they paid the price for it on that one. That's all pretty much I had from that game. I think the group is absolutely wide open, as we'll talk about after our next game. I certainly expected Colombia to at least get a draw out of this, at least get a draw and likely win. I thought they were the more talented squad before the match began. And so with Japan winning, this group is absolutely wide open. Getting to the second match of the day, that was Poland versus Senegal. It also finished 2-1, but Senegal was the 2 and Poland was the 1. And that was a little bit unexpected just with how the pedigree of some of the Polish players. But I mean, Senegal had a ton of talented players too. You almost forget how talented their squad really is with the Premier League players. You have Koulibaly, who plays for Napoli in Italy, and they have a ton of talented players too. So I was really excited to see them play. I predicted the match would end 1-1 as a tie, but I was kind of pulling for Senegal because I think that they might be the best team out of Africa at this World Cup. And as the other results have gone, I think that is proven correct so far. I thought both teams were kind of a bit nervy and had some bad giveaways in the early stages. The game opened up in certain parts of the first half, but then it was kind of really slow and bogged down at other parts. So it wasn't really a great first half. Now, I believe, I might have my times wrong, but I believe all the goals came in the second half. And if it wasn't, then the first goal for Senegal, which is when Piszczek was beat way too easily at midfield. So Piszczek was the outside back for Poland, and he just basically he was trying to shield the guy and not get into the right position. And so ultimately he kind of got tripped up under his own feet. And then the the Senegal winger was able to just easily get by him. They had a break. Mane played a great layoff. So the winger, I can't remember his name, apologies. He played it into Mane, who was in acres of space. He drew defenders in and then laid it off to Idris Ige, I believe is the one who shot that ball. And then it took a unfortunate deflection if you are a Poland fan, a fortunate deflection if you are a Senegal fan. That came in the 37th minute. So that was in the first half. And beat the goalkeeper. But I just thought that, that goal is basically on Piszczek, not maintaining the right position and not, just getting back. And, if you're not going to win that ball, at least get goal side and stand the guy up and don't let him easily beat you there. Senegal was definitely more dangerous on the break. I thought Poland had a couple breaks in the first half, but really weren't too dangerous. Then halftime came, Poland shifted to a 3-4-3 or basically a 3-4-3. They shifted to 3 in the back, and they were much better in the second half. I thought that, Poland just started to get more chances. They looked more comfortable after that switch. One thing I wanted to highlight, there's no other commentary here beyond just the Senegal keeper was so skinny. I don't know if I've seen a goalkeeper that skinny. He played very, very well, and there wasn't really a ton of instances where his skinniness impacted the game. And I thought he actually came out and was really strong on crosses. But a lot of times you see goalkeepers who almost look like, American football players to a certain extent. They tend to be a little bit wider, a little bit stronger, bigger muscles so that they can kind of muscle people in the box, or at the very least they're taller. I mean, this guy wasn't too tall and he was exceptionally skinny. And again, he had a fairly good game. It was just something that I happened to notice. So interesting to look out for as the World Cup goes on to see if there's any impact on that. Have to talk about Senegal's second goal. It was such a weird play in so many different ways. So first off, the collision that led to the player being on the ground. So the guy who was on the ground was Sarr, right? I believe his name was Sarr. No, it was Niang. So Niang was on the ground. We'll talk about Sarr later. That's why Niang, who was on the ground. There was a collision with a Polish player. It looked like he maybe tweaked his knee. So there was some sort of legitimate possible injury there. Now, Poland kept playing. Eventually, there was a foul committed, and Senegal wanted to do a substitution. Senegal wanted to substitute out Diouf, who was the other forward, but with Niang's injury, they ultimately decided to wait to see if Niang was okay. Now, it led to a bunch of confusion from the referees, from the people on the field, from everyone. Poland went about playing. The ball got cleared out to Krakowiak, who was at the kind of center circle. And he went to go just play a simple back pass, kind of, lazily, but there was nobody around, back to his keeper or center back. It looked like Niang, who was off to the side of the pitch, was still in discussion with the sideline referee and assistant referee, and that they didn't explicitly tell him he was okay to come back. Now, he may have they didn't take it back, so they must have told him it was okay. It was just it was poor awareness from the referees. There was nothing that anybody could do. It's not like that can be reviewed or anything. It was just really, really poor awareness from the referees to allow him back onto the field during that particular moment. And it was just so unfortunate for Poland because you can't really fault too many people. I mean, the back pass was a bit lazy, but I mean, there's nobody around, so I can't really fault Krakowiak or the Polish center back for being, hesitant to get back and collect that ball when Szczesny was coming out. It was just really, really unfortunate, and I blame the refs for that whole sort of situation. He really should have been kept off the field until possession was really established for Poland. Poland really couldn't get anything going in the final third. I know that they scored on a set piece, but really they didn't have too many opportunities to really get goals from the run of play. I thought they were a bit sloppy once they got to the final third. And I thought Senegal did a really good job of defending in their own box and just playing really well. So I was impressed with Senegal's performance. And then on Poland's goal, there was another weird situation, again, involving the referee. It looked like Senegal was trying to make a sub. Now, I don't know, and this is why it would be good if I had my brothers on or somebody else. So if anyone on YouTube wants to respond to this, it looked like Senegal was trying to make a sub and the referee denied it. Now, I don't know if that was the case or if Senegal said, hey, we don't want to sub on a set piece, and they were the ones to make that decision and sort of delay the sub. But again, it looked like there was some confusion on that goal, and ultimately Poland scored from it. And it was a really nice goal, really nice header from Krakowiak. But again, it was just a weird situation with the referee. Last point from this game, late in the match, Sarr, the winger, number 18 for Senegal, had a pretty blatant dive. And in the first half, the referee had warned him for diving already. So I was surprised that the referee didn't book him for that second blatant dive because, I thought that he had warned the guy. If he was going to do it again, I thought the referee should have gone ahead and booked him for that second dive. But ultimately, Senegal got the win. Again, the group is wide open. I really like Senegal's chances of progressing from this group. And, I think it's wide open. I know Japan got that win. I mean, between the other three teams, I think it's absolutely wide open. I think any of the other three teams, Japan, Colombia, or Poland, can get through from this group, but I really like Senegal's chances and the way they played. Last match of the day just finished 3-1 between Russia and Egypt, with Russia being the victor. Predicted the 3-1 scoreline before the match, but I predicted Egypt would get it. Proved to be incorrect. I was very impressed by the way Russia played in that match. I was not very high on them. So if you listen to the podcast, so far, I thought that they were fortunate against Saudi Arabia. I thought that Russia was just competent. I didn't think they looked particularly good against Saudi Arabia. So I expected Egypt to come out and sort of expose some of the things that I had seen in that Saudi Arabia game. And I was proved very wrong. I thought Egypt played exceptionally well. Now, a lot of the pressure was off of them, and they could sort of play defensively, play through Zuba and Golovin moving forward. Play between Golovin and Zuba moving forward. And Zuba, I thought, was the best player on the pitch. I thought he played exceptionally at center forward. He was holding the ball up, but he also was controlling the ball exceptionally well, and he had pretty good touch on his passes for a big dude. So he just played very, very well as just a warrior battler up front, just occupying the center backs and creating space for the rest of the Russian team. So he was absolutely a handful, very involved on the first goal, which was an own goal. It was sort of a broken play, where the Egyptian player, the Egyptian player cleared the ball, came to a Russian player at the top of the box, and he whipped in a shot and ultimately got deflected into their own net by Fatih, who was the outside back for Egypt. Now, Zuba was standing right next to Fatih, and they were both sort of battling arm in arm. And, I know some people were saying, I don't know if this should have been a foul on Zuba or if they should have done anything about this. For me, it was a play on. I was good with the no call. I was good with the no review. I thought that this was a good goal. I thought it was unfortunate for Fatih, the captain of Egypt, but ultimately it was a good play from Zuba, who again had a fantastic match. After the Russia goal, you could see, so the first half was 0-0, just taking a step back. It was 0-0. There wasn't too much to report, so all of this happened in the second half. So after that Russia goal, Salah came on, and he didn't come on, but he came more centrally and was trying to get more involved in the match and trying to dictate play a bit more. Who do I expect to come out of Group H? So we just had a legal gamer join on YouTube, so I did just talk about that a bit. So just for quick reference, I expect Senegal to come out, and then I said it's pretty much wide open between Poland, Colombia, and Japan. If I had to guess right now, I would expect Colombia to come out of it, but I think it's absolutely wide open. So we'll see what's going to happen there. Now, getting back to the Russia versus Egypt game, after the Russia goal, Salah again came more centrally. The second goal was just really well worked by Russia. So they had Fernandez, the outside back, coming down the wing, and he swung in a low cross, and Cheryshev got into great positioning, scored his third goal of the tournament, and just tap in. So again, Russia played very, very well throughout this whole match. I thought that the game was set up really well for them to play well. Egypt had to come out and try to dictate the match, and they were clearly not comfortable in possession and forced to dictate the match. That is not their game, and so I thought they really struggled with that. And finally, the third goal was just amazing play by Zuba. He long ball played in. He held off a defender, controlled it on his chest, flicked it around the defender. Again, amazing control from the big dude. And then nice silky touch, just kind of side foot, bend it near post. Again, just absolutely fantastic play from him. I thought it was a well-deserved goal. And again, I thought he was the best player on the pitch, but Golovin certainly played well as well. He was very influential. And finally, Egypt's goal, which was the penalty. I thought it was a correct call. Stu Holden on the U.S. commentary pointed out, the holding started outside the box, but it carried into the box. And so, again, I thought that was the right call on that particular play. So that was today's matches. Tomorrow's matches, we have Portugal versus Morocco, Uruguay versus Saudi Arabia, and Iran versus Spain. So from a Portugal-Morocco perspective, anyone who's seen this before knows I'm still pretty high on Morocco. I expect Morocco to come out and play well against Portugal. I thought they played pretty well against Iran, at least for the first 15, 20 minutes, and then they sort of really fell off. But I'm hoping that they can get a result against Portugal because, again, my predictions were Spain and Morocco coming out of that group. And if Morocco can get a result against Portugal, a win, that really opens things up. Do I necessarily think that's going to happen? I don't know. I mean, Portugal really was dragged to a draw against Spain, who was really talented, by Cristiano Ronaldo, and Morocco is nowhere near as talented as Spain. So if I really, I expect Portugal to win this match, close, tight match, but I expect Portugal to win. But I will be sort of hoping for Morocco just from the standpoint of so I can look good based on my previous predictions. So we'll see what happens. Maybe it's a 2-1 Portugal win, but I could see that flipping based on my rooting interests. Next match is Uruguay versus Saudi Arabia. This is going to be lopsided. At least this is what I expect, unless Saudi Arabia has flown in different players or just made some serious tactical adjustments. I don't see any way that this isn't a multi-goal victory for Uruguay. I'm talking 3-4 goals maybe. Uruguay had chances against Egypt, and they just couldn't finish. And Egypt is more solid in the back than Saudi Arabia. So I expect this to end, 3-4-0. I don't expect Uruguay to concede a goal, and I expect Saudi Arabia to give up some goals. So that's what I expect from that match. And the final match, Iran versus Spain. I thought Iran did well against Morocco. They were very committed defensively, very, very organized. But if there's one team in this tournament that can break down a really packed in defense, it's Spain. With their tiki-taka, they can pull you out. And, even though there's no space there, Spain will find space. So even with how well Iran played their first match, I expect Spain to get out of that match, again, with a multi-goal victory. I don't see any way Spain concedes in this match unless it's from a set piece. So again, I expect that to be 2-3-0, just with Spain a composed sort of performance. One last thought from a legal gamer who's sending us on YouTube. Depends on if Ronaldo plays well like he did against Spain in the Portugal-Morocco match. Yes, I would agree with that. Like I kind of hinted at, I mean, it's really going to depend on Ronaldo's performance because like we talked about after the Spain game, and I think Matt brought it up, he really expected more from Portugal moving forward or going forward offensively from that perspective. And I didn't think that they were particularly good. Now, Spain is incredibly talented, right? And Morocco isn't nearly as talented as Spain. So again, if I had to choose, I would expect that match to end 2-1 to Portugal. But again, I can see it being tight and I can see it going either way. I think it should be fairly interesting. Again, I think Morocco is going to come out and try to play offensive soccer. So we will see. Before we get out of here, I wanted to quickly mention I have another YouTube channel. So for anyone watching on YouTube, I have another YouTube channel called The Soccer Tavern, and anyone listening on the podcast, we'll link to it in the show notes as well. But The Soccer Tavern, we are making videos about the history, culture, and philosophy of the beautiful game. And so on that channel, we have videos about the history of all the national teams playing in the World Cup. So 32 teams. You can find out about, their crest history, why their nicknames are what they are, how many World Cups they've been in, and tons of other information. So if you're interested, please go check them out. Again, we'll link to it in the video description and in the podcast show notes. And anyone, again, who's listening to the podcast, we record this thing also on YouTube right after the matches end, so come hang with us there. Anyone who's watching on YouTube, we have this thing in audio form as well as just a podcast on brostalkingsoccerpodcast.com. So if you prefer more the audio medium, go check us out there. And anyone listening on the podcast, if you prefer to see our faces and, see the kind of the raw footage, go check us out on YouTube. With that brings us to the end of another podcast. My brothers didn't make it, it looks like. So hopefully tomorrow we can get one or both of them back on or get another guest in here. If you want to get in contact with us, our email is bros.talking.soccer@gmail.com. Our Twitter's @BTSoccerPod. Go follow us there. Interact with us. Let me know if you like these podcasts, if you like what we're doing, if there's any other topics you want us to talk about or any specific details or things we might be missing, love to hear that. Again, you can find information about us, check out past episodes and more over on brostalkingsoccerpodcast.com. Thanks so much for being here. Illegal Gamer, thank you for tuning in and watching the YouTube stream. Hopefully others tune in the future, and podcast listeners, thanks for being here. Talk to you soon, everybody. See you.